All right, folks, let's look at the first topic we're going to be covering in this course, and it's pretty much just what is economics, right? What is it, and what will we be studying? So, the first thing we'll talk about, right, what will we be studying in economics? And there are two topics, main topics, that we're going to study in economics. Right. First one is macro, right? So, but basically, macroeconomics are the two topics under economics, right? They're the basic ones. Then you can get into different individual ones. But micro is what we're going to cover in this course. Both of them cover supply and demand. So we'll only do supply and demand once. And then we look at what's macro. Macro is the gross domestic product, it's fiscal and monetary policy, it's trade with other countries, unemployment, inflation, exchange rates. Right, that pretty much covers what macro is. There's a few things we got to add there, like growth and stuff. But for the most part, that's what we have. Then we look at microeconomics, which again also covers supply and demand, right, and choice and things like that. And then we have oligopolies, monopolies, production cost, marginal benefits, marginal cost, and utility. So those are the topics. I mean, add 5 other things in there, and we've probably covered the whole course. So let's dive in this a little bit and talk about why we study economics. Right? We study economics because our wants exceed our needs. We want more than we can have. Right? And because of that, we're going to have to make some decisions. So we have economic wants exceed productive capacity. Right? The society always wants, but the ability of society to produce is limited. We only have a certain amount of workers. We only have a certain amount of factories and things like that to produce things. Okay, so that's why we study it. The question is, what is it? It is a social science concerned with making optimal choices under conditions of scarcity, right? Helping to make the best choice because we don't have all the resources that we need, right? So let's kind of just give a quick little look at scarcity and choice, right? This is a lot to do with macro. It does go into micro a little bit, but it's more of a focus on macro in a sense. And we look at resources. Resources are scarce. So when I'm making this video, it's the middle of August, and Delta variant is blowing up in the southern states, right? More towards the west. We have Florida, we have Texas are just out of control with the Delta variant. So what's happening in those states is there aren't enough beds for sick people because the COVID patients are using up all the beds. So the resource here would be the space, the beds in the hospital. Those are scarce. Because of that, choices must be made. Right? What we have to make choices. What are we going to do with all these unvaccinated COVID cases in the hospital? Right? With something to do. So the decision, there's an opportunity cost. If we leave them in the hospital, then the opportunity cost is people who come in with other illnesses can't get into the hospital because there aren't enough beds. Right? Or we could put the COVID people like Texas is doing. Texas is setting up tents in the parking lot and putting beds in there to house the COVID patients. Right? I don't know that I'd want to be in a parking lot if I was sick, but that's the choices they have to make. Right? That's the opportunity cost. You waking up this morning and going to school, the opportunity cost of you going to school was the sleep that you didn't get. Right? You taking AP Econ, the opportunity cost is the other class that you wanted to take that you can't take. Right? When you must have valued Econ greater than you valued that course. Or Econ looks better on your transcript, right? But anyway, so then the other topic is there's no such thing as a free lunch. Even though we may not be paying for something, society is paying for the resources. Right? So if I go into Subway and I steal a sandwich, it's free to me, but society paid for that. There was resources that went into that. There was labor, there was capital that cost the business money. So nothing is free in this world, right? And if you want to argue that, make a little note to yourself, and we can argue that in class. Also, opportunity costs. Highlight that, bold it, circle it. That's a big thing in economics. The opportunity cost. We talk about it a lot, especially with you guys going to college. What's the opportunity cost of going to college? right? Think about that as another thing we'll discuss in class. The marginal analysis looks at marginal benefit, right? Marginal cost. And then what is marginal? Marginal means extra. The extra benefit you get from having an additional slice of pizza. What's the cost of having an additional slice of pizza? Right? That's what we're looking at. What's the additional benefit of doing one more run down the ski slope? Right? What's the cost of doing one more run down the ski slope? If the benefit is greater than the cost, or in this case, the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, you do an extra run down the ski slope. If it's not, if marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit, you pass on going down one more time and you pack up your stuff. Okay, when we talk about it, we usually just abbreviate with MB and MC. Okay, now the next topic, which is getting clobbered in the country right now, is the scientific method, right? So let's look at the scientific method and see what we have here. We're going to observe. So I'll use, again, a topic that's pretty out there in the news right now, and it's vaccinations for children. Or do children carry the COVID, right? How likely are children to get the COVID? So we observe, and then we formulate a hypothesis. And what we do with that hypothesis is we're going to say, I'm going to make the hypothesis, and this is from last year. I'm going to say that children aren't affected by the COVID virus as much as adults, right? We can accept or reject that. For now, we're going to accept the hypothesis. And once we accept it, we're going to test it. And we're going to look at how many people are getting COVID, and we're going to realize that it's majority of older people. Seems to be 35 and older are the ones getting more likely to get COVID than younger people. Okay? Now the thing is, once we've done that, we have to continue to test the hypothesis, right? Well, let's look at that. What we'll talk about young people. Well, now with the Delta variant, I have to change my hypothesis, right? Because it's not true anymore. Younger people are getting the virus, right? So we have to observe now and say, well, we need to change. And this is what's giving people the biggest problem in this country, is that now we say, wait, it's different now. Well, how can you make it different? Last year, you told me this. Right, that's science. We're observing and learning as we go along. God, never thought I would defend science. All right, anyway, that's the scientific method. A couple of things we want to look at in economics are called economic principles. A couple of things you should be aware of when we do this is we make generalizations. Right, generalization is everyone in this class is taking economics because they want it to look good on their transcript. And a couple of kids raise their hand and say, no, I'm taking it because it will help me in college. And I want to be a business major. Okay, but in order to do a study, I have to make a generalization. There will be outliers, absolutely, but we're looking at what most people will do, right? And then we have a thing called other things equal assumption, right? That's in Latin, Miss Lynch will tell you, is called ceteris or ceteris paribus. Undo, don't change anything. So an example would be, I say to you, the temperature is, when the temperature goes above 90, the demand for ice cream goes up, right? Okay, so we hold everything constant but the temperature, and we see what happens. Where you run into problems is when you do this. Wait a minute, Mr. Mooney, what if I lost my job? All right, well, that's not holding everything equal, is it? Wait a minute, Mr. Mooney, what if my parents don't let me eat ice cream? Wait a minute, what if I don't have money? What if I can't tolerate dairy? What if? That gets you in trouble. Answer what's being asked. What happens to demand for ice cream when the temperatures go above 90 degrees? And everything else, all of the variables are held constant, right? Now, once we've gotten through that, we then can use a graph to show you what we just talked about. The graph is like that picture's worth 1,000 words. That graph is to help you understand what we just learned. It is not the story. Never make the graph the story. Make the graph highlight your story. Okay? All right. So then, like we talked about earlier, there's micro, decisions made by individual units, and there's macro, which examines the economy as a whole. All right, look at micro as the individual schools in Great Neck. North does things differently than South. South does things differently than North. The middle schools, things are done differently. And they make decisions based on their school. Those are micro decisions. When Dr. Pendergrass makes a decision for the whole district, that's a macro decision, right? So when Biden's making a decision for the whole country, he's making a macro decision. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is saying, no. Florida will make their own decisions, right? We're going to make a micro decision. We're not listening to the whole one. All right, so micro is the trees, macro is the forest. All right, last thing I want to cover here are two types of economics that we talk about. We talk about positive economics, which deals with facts. So positive economics, you would say temperature is 96 degrees. Unemployment's 3.5%. Unemployment's 5.4%. Inflation is 3.8%. Right? So we're not going to argue those. Those are all positive economics. Those are all facts that we look up the numbers and we get them. Right? But normative economics is subjective. The unemployment rate's too high. Inflation is too high. The temperature is too warm. All of those are subjective, and that's where the debate comes in. Right? Nobody's saying that we don't need infrastructure. What they're saying is the infrastructure is too expensive. It's not too expensive. It is too expensive. They're all arguing normative economics, right? And that's the whole thing. That's what we're going to spend our time discussing is normative economics. All right, so that's your little broad understanding or intro to economics, some of the things we'll talk about. And then the next video we're going to cover is going to talk about choice and having to choose between two goods. And based on the benefit you get from those goods, which one you choose. All right. Okay, boys and girls. See you on the next time.